All right, I'll go ahead and kick us off. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our fall 2020 session of the Paycheck, Manage Your Time, Your Money, and Your Expectations. My name is Ash Taylor Byrel, and I'm the Job Location and Development Coordinator with VCU Career Services, and I'll let my colleagues go ahead and introduce themselves as well.
My name is Araba. I am a sophomore at VCU. I'm a psychology major and business minor, and I'm a money coach.
My name is Carly Toney. I am the graduate assistant at the Virginia Credit Union Financial Success Center at VCU.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, like I said, everyone, for joining us today. So we can go ahead and go to our next slide and start going into what we'll be discussing in our presentation today. I see students on a regular basis in part of my role, and I've been hearing a lot of questions that we wanted to address in our presentation today. Normally we do this presentation once per semester, but we've had to switch it up a little bit because there have been new challenges, of course, and we're probably all tired of hearing it, this unprecedented time that we're in. One of the questions that we get a lot is how has the global pandemic affected my financial goals and my financial situation? And our second question that we get is, what can I do today? What can students do today to address the challenges that we're going to see in the job market that have developed because of the global pandemic? And last but certainly not least, how do we manage our incomes and set ourselves up for financial success in the future? And so these questions are going to serve as our roadmap and be the questions that we answer during our time here today. So let's go ahead and talk about goals and how they have changed. So back before COVID, before the world caught fire, our students' goals were to find professional experience and that will prepare them for their post-secondary career and their career journey in the future, while also finding income to support their time in college now. And now the goal is to find professional experience and income to support their college experience. The goal hasn't changed for students. What's changed instead is actually the setting, the landscape of the problem. And so we just have to navigate in different ways. So let's go ahead and discuss some of the challenges that have arisen in the time of COVID-19. Number one, how do students earn any money when so many businesses are shutting their doors? I actually work, my specialty and my industry focus is with part-time jobs and with like food service, retail service in and around VCU. And unfortunately, a lot of those businesses have been affected by the COVID-19. People aren't coming out to shop as much, or maybe stores have limited hours. So it's become a lot harder for students to find even that level of work experience because these businesses are shutting their doors. Our next challenge is, how do I gain professional experience during hiring freeze? And we actually had to navigate this crisis back in the spring when all of the businesses and institutions went virtual. We had students who were either in internships in the spring or they had internships lined up for the summer, and they suddenly found that those internships and positions had been canceled. And so they started to come to career services, panicking essentially. How am I going to find this professional experience? My job requires or my career goal requires that I have professional experience in the form of an internship. How do I get that experience now? Last, again, certainly not least, how do we make any sort of financial plan or career plan when the situation is changing, by the day, by the week, by the month? It's hard to find stability and certainty when the world is forever changing around you. So these are the challenges that I've been receiving from students, but the really important thing to remember, you want to go to the next slide? You're not alone. Everyone, they get caught up in their own minds and think that they're the only person having these problems, when in reality, it's not just students who are feeling this sort of way, but it's professionals, it's employers. We're all trying to figure out this new normal together. And that could be seen as cause for even more anxiety and panic. I actually like to see that as more of a cause for opportunity and innovation. We've completely changed the landscape of the student and the employer relationship, which means that there's new ways that you can engage, new ways that you can grow, and probably new ways for employers to determine the value of one student over another when it comes to hiring. So that's how we answered question one. Now we're going to talk about how we can adapt now and make changes now to set ourselves up for success in the future. And I actually have isolated 4 different techniques that you can use. Number 1, you want to reach out to career services early and often. Number 2, we want to attend virtual events to begin networking with employers. Number 3, you can find remote work and still build that professional experience and that income that you need. And number 4, we're really going to tidy up and beef up your virtual presence. And let's go through these one by one. The first is to reach out with career services early and often. You don't have to be a senior to go to the career services office. You can come in, if you're a first year student, this is your 3rd week of classes or 4th week, you can definitely come on in. You don't have to have a career goal in mind. You might be an undeclared major and you have no idea what you want to do with your life. That's great. And we can help you explore that and help you develop a career journey, a career path that will get you to what best suits you and your interests and what you want to do. Now, when you come up with that destination, there's going to be some gaps in your resume that you need to work on filling, and that would be where normal employment comes into play, right? So maybe your job requires that you know how to use, that you have customer service experience, so you would get a part-time job where you're in customer service. Well, how do you do that if that opportunity isn't normally available to you because of COVID? Our career advisors have an expertise in helping you identify those gaps and then taking your other experiences and using that to develop language that still communicates your skills. Because everything that you do is a method of training and a method of professional experience. You just have to word it correctly. And you can make an appointment with a career services advisor by going to careers.vcu.edu. You make appointments through Handshake, which there's a link to on the main page. We also have tons of resources on our website, so resume development, cover letter development, interview skills, and oodles of other things that are available to you on our website. Next, you can start attending virtual events to network with employers. Now, I'll make myself vulnerable. When I was an undergraduate, those things sounded super boring to me, but I really am kicking myself because the students who went to go connect with those employers to learn about what it means to work for this or that company, what it means to work in this or that position, those students got job offers like immediately upon graduating. And there's multiple ways that you can do that. We have career fairs, which we switched to a completely virtual model for this semester. We had our first 2 in August, but we're going to have our next 2 in October. We had the Diversity, Career, and Internship Fair. And then we also have the Experiential Opportunities Fair, which is more designed for internships, shadowing, and other experiential opportunities. They are completely online, and you can register for those fairs via Handshake. We're also rolling out virtual showcases. One of the things that we didn't want to lose was the employer face-to-face interaction with students in that a more intimate setting. We used to do information tables on campus where you could have those conversations. We've kind of switched those to be a completely virtual format. We're rolling out 6 for this semester, and our first one is actually on the 15th of September, so not next Tuesday, the Tuesday after. And we're highlighting different employers from a vast array of different industries. You can definitely show up for one of those. And of course, we do a lot of programming, workshops, panels, events like this. This is a really great option for you to meet with other professionals or meet with, again, our career advisors and other people at VCU that will really help you develop your skills. And you can look at our event list and our event calendar by going to vcu.joinhandshake.com/events. Our next technique is to start to work remotely. One of the things that the professional world has learned as we've shifted to this new normal is that we don't all need to be in the same building to be productive. And I've personally made it a mandate of mine, no other employer should ever ask me to work in an office every day out of the week ever again, because I've become used to this, and I found ways to be just as productive at my home office than I am in the workplace, in the work office. You can actually look for remote jobs by searching on Handshake. I do have a custom remote part-time job search that I will happily share with everyone after the presentation in the chat. We have social media that is dedicated to promoting paid part-time positions for students. Some of them are in person, some of them are remote, but we post every single day at VCU Student Jobs on Twitter and Instagram. There's actually going to be more posts on Twitter, but more detail usually on Instagram just because of the different in character count there. So follow both and you'll see a lot of information, a lot of the opportunities that are available. What I'm really excited about, this semester we're rolling out what's called a Parker Dewey, and they offer micro internships, and the vast majority of those are remote. Now, micro internship I'd like to describe as like a professional gig. Employers or organizations will have a project that needs to get done, and it's not a big enough project that they need to hire an additional person for, but it is still too much work for their current staff to handle. So maybe things like designing a new logo or going through data or coding this particular feature or what are their websites or their app or something like that. And they'll give you an estimate and say, okay, we want you to do this task. It should take approximately 40 hours for you to complete. The due date is, October 15th or whenever, and they'll pay you $500 or something like that. And that way you can work these micro internships. Like I said, the vast majority of them are remote, and you can add that to your portfolio, to your resume as professional projects that you have worked on. So even though you might not have the traditional internship where you're going there in person and you're doing these projects with the same company, you can still find ways of doing those sorts of professional projects and adding them to your resume. And it's honestly a really good source of money as well. And you can learn more and sign up for your free account at info.parkerdewey.com/VCU. All right, and this one is honestly one of my favorites because it's so often overlooked by our students. You want to beef up your virtual presence. Before COVID-19, employers were always Googling applicants just to kind of get a feel for them. We live in a really small, interconnected world, and so the internet, of course, reveals everything. Now that we are pretty much entirely teleworking and virtual almost in every moment of our lives, we want to really knock that out of the park. So create your handshake profile, complete your LinkedIn profile, make those be the best representations of your professional self as possible, and update those regularly with your accomplishments, the classes that you're taking, any sort of professional article that you've read or training that you attended. Use that to demonstrate to employers that you're learning while you're in school and you're active while you're in school, and that's just going to help you hit the ground running. Also, audit your social media. I like to call it digital dirt, just because it could be like, kind of skeletons in your closet. You want to make sure that if employer Googles your name, the first thing that shouldn't come up is not a picture of you, being completely drunk at a party or, another sort of unprofessional behavior. And I'm not saying you can't have a personal account, but I'm saying you should be really careful about what's on that personal account. Maybe do an audit from a bird's eye view. What would an employer think if they Googled my name and they saw these things come up? And then you can make adjustments, delete where you can, and try to find ways to minimize that digital dirt that's on you. All right, and so now we're actually going to transition to our third segment, which I'm going to hand over to our Financial Success Center.
You may be asking yourself now, how do I set good fiscal habits right now? That's a great question. The main thing is becoming familiar with your cash flow. What your cash flow is your income minus your expenses. So what are some sources of income? You can leave them in the chat. Jobs. Yes, that's a good one. Your parents. Yeah. With income, some things you want to think about are how often you get paid, ways you can get paid more, and if you can find a side hustle. And the other side of cash flow is expenses. We have fixed expenses and variable expenses. What are some examples of fixed expenses?
I see car payment in the chat.
Rent, yes. Rent is a good one. So fixed expenses are expenses that don't change. They're basically the same. Yeah. So what are some examples of variable expenses? These change depending on production, depending on how much value you're getting out of them, Entertainment, yes, that's a great one. Entertainment, travel, yes, that's great. Some other things you want to ask yourself are you able to pay your bills and are you able to save for the future? So at the Money Spot, we can help you create a cash flow. We can help you create a savings goal and help you achieve those goals. So when you're creating a cash flow, the first thing to do is to track your income. To do this, you would need to look at your last 3 months of paychecks and calculate your average. So that is really important to do. The other thing you can do is to track your expenses. This is basically following your money. So you would identify fixed expenses and average out your variable expenses. This is also important to do so you can keep your receipts, so you can go back and look at those, check your bank statements. And with a part-time job, your paychecks will be variable. So this is where ebb and flow comes to play, depending on the number of hours you work, your availability.
So how can you keep track? So I want each of you to choose one of these jobs, and that's who you're going to be today. So we have the library assistant, $8.76 per hour, 10 hours per week. You get paid once every 2 weeks, so that's 20 hours per paycheck. It can be a peer tutor, $10.50 an hour, 6 hours per week, so 12 hours per paycheck. Or you can be a production assistant, $12 an hour, 15 hours per week, and 30 hours per paycheck. So I would like you to choose your job and then figure out what your net and gross pay will be. So your gross pay is going to be how much you earned, and your net pay is going to be how much you earned after taxes, so what you're going to take home. So usually about 2/3 of your salary. All right, so I'll give you a second to figure those out. So to figure out your gross pay, you're just going to take your hourly rate, multiply it by the hours per paycheck. That's what you've got. Then you're going to use that to find your net income by taking 2/3 of the gross. All right, so I'll give you a minute to do that. And you can put your numbers in the chat when you have them. All right, for our library assistant, what do we have for our gross and net pay if you've got it? Okay, 1752 gross and 1168 net. Yep, so forgot a decimal there, but that's about right. So the way that you may have done the 2/3, you might get a number a little bit different than this net income, but somewhere about here we can estimate. Okay. Does anybody have the numbers for the peer tutor? And so we've got $126 gross, which translates to $84.42 about in net. All right, how about our production assistant? What do you have for us? Okay, yep, we got $360 gross, $240.12 net. Yep, about in there somewhere. So something I do want to make you aware of in this day and age for COVID is the Paycheck Protection Act that was just passed. And so what that's going to mean for you is that the federal government may not take out all of the taxes that they usually would at this time, but it's still a good idea to look at your salary, your gross income, take that third that you would be paying for taxes and put it away somewhere, because at some point within the next year, you're going to have to pay those taxes back somehow, whether that's in April with your taxes, or if that's taking more out of your check later. One way or another, the government is going to get their money. So some other things to think about with our finances is the time value of money. So that means that money you have now is worth more than the identical sum of money in the future due to its earning potential. So if you have $10 in your wallet right now, you can walk over to Starbucks and you can buy a drink. or you can put it in the bank, and then the interest on that money will grow exponentially. So if you had that same $10 and you kept it for a year and you walked over to Starbucks and bought a drink, one, your drink's probably going to cost a little bit more, so your $10 isn't going to go quite as far. And two, if you went and put it in the bank next year, then you would have lost out on the money that you could have been making on it this year. So experts recommend saving 20% of each paycheck and then building up 3 to 6 months of expenses for an emergency. So that might seem like a lot, but use that as your goal. Start saving what you can and use 20% as your post-grad salary goal. We like to think about the 50-30-20 rule as an ideal to strive for. So 50% of your money goes to your needs, 30% goes to your wants, and 20% goes into savings. Again, this is an ideal, and when you have to make difficult decisions, make sure to take care of your needs first, and remember that saving anything is going to help you out in the future. So one way to help yourself save is to have your direct deposit from your job go directly into a savings account and then pay yourself from that savings. So you keep your savings goal from each paycheck in the savings account and leave that, and then take money for yourself from that. So to practice some of that, if you are our library assistant, I'd like you to save 15% of your net pay, which we still have in the chat. If you're our peer tutor, which I think is me, but if anybody else is out there doing it, I'd like you to save 5%. And then if you're our production assistant, I'd like you to save 10% and see where those numbers bring you. So I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, so our library assistants, how much are we saving for a paycheck? $17.52. All right, so here we did 14% so that we could pay ourselves $100, just an even 100. We take an even 100 out. And then you can see that if you saved 14% over the entire year, you would end up with $417.12 just from saving $17.38 from each paycheck. Less than $20, probably won't even miss it. All right, so our peer tutor, we got any peer tutors out there?
I practice. Would it be, well, let me give a second for the chat to.
Sure. Ash could be our peer tutor. I know, you guys want that one because it doesn't have enough hours, is that it? All right, what'd you get, Ash?
I got about $8.12.
Yeah, so I think that this is even less than that.
Oh.
Yeah, so this was only saving $4.42 for the 5% there. Pay yourself $80 from your paycheck, and then you end up with $106.08 over a year. So $4, you're not gonna miss that. But if you did the 10%, yeah, that'd be $8, and then you could
Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, and you'd have $200, and so that's less than $10. Again, probably not gonna miss it, and giving yourself a good setup for the future. All right, how about our production assistant? I know we got a couple of those out there. So if we pay ourselves $220 from that, just kind of making it a round number, so then we're saving $21.20, so about $20 every paycheck, 9%-ish. That saves us $500 in just a year. And so that's a good way of showing you that you can take just a little bit of money and make it make more money for you just by not spending it. So I want to make a quick plug for the Money Spot. Araba is one of our coaches. We have several others, and we are available for one-on-one appointments for your unique financial situation. So you can come in, we'll help you make that cash flow sheet. We'll help you make some savings goals. We can also talk about affording college, paying down debt, building your credit, and our coaches are students themselves. So they really understand what it's like to be a student, what it's like to be a student worker, and just the kind of financial situations that you might find yourselves in. We are doing appointments all virtual this semester, and you can make appointments for that on Navigate. You can also email us. I'll put that in the chat with any other questions that you think of after this. We're at the Money Spot at vcu.edu. And you can also follow us on Instagram at the Money Spot for our upcoming events, webinars, and other financial education opportunities. And with that, I think we're ready to take questions. So if you have questions for Ash, for me, for Araba is a good resource about what it's like to actually be a student worker. And Ash has put the remote part-time job search on Handshake as well in the chat.
Right now, I have pulled up the dates of our next two career fairs so that I could share it with the group. So our diversity career and internship fair is going to be October 7th from 1 until 4. You don't have to stay for that whole period. You actually register for time slots ahead of time, so it's really flexible. And then our experiential opportunities fair is October 21st, same thing, 1 until 4. I do see a question here. What are some great ways to find online jobs? And the link that I just put in Handshake is a good opportunity for you. It has all of our remote opportunities that have come through on Handshake, and it's part-time and it's paid. The micro internships on Parker Dewey are another good option, especially if you're looking for like professional development opportunities to really beef up your resume. Outside of that, you can find other positions on things like Indeed. If you're looking for something really quick, there's MTurk through Amazon. You just have to be very careful where you search and what you sign up for. Unfortunately, the online employment complex is full of scam artists. So whenever you're evaluating something, make sure that you're not giving them any of your credit card information or your bank account information. And read the reviews ahead of time. Usually if you Google company name /review or /scam or something, you can kind of see other people's experiences and learn from them as well. So just be careful where you look, but they're definitely out there.
Okay, I have a private question a little bit more about exactly how to schedule an appointment with the Money Spot. So through Navigate, which is the same place you'll go to make your appointments for academic advising, that kind of thing. We are in the care package that says, it's kind of long, but it says something about like financial advice, financial peer-to-peer coaching, and we'll be under the Money Spot virtual. It'll show you our availabilities. It's kind of like, what day is it? And then do you want morning or evening? And it'll show you how many we have available based on our coaches' availabilities. And then you'll be able to choose that. You'll be able to choose a certain coach if you like. If you really enjoyed Araba's presentation, want to meet with her, it'll allow you to do that. Or you can just click next and have whoever's available. Then it'll ask you more specifically about what you're coming in for, and it'll give you a drop-down menu of the options that I have listed before, and you'll go through that. It'll send you a confirmation email. We'll ask you to fill out a couple forms, take a couple of surveys about your ideas about money, so that we can talk through those with you at your appointment. And then you'll just show up on Zoom. The Zoom link will be in the invitation, and we will get started on whatever questions that you have. Let's see. Oh, yep. So I got another private question. Can Money Spot coaches help me with my credit and understanding loans better? Yep. So that's something we can do. Do want to make a distinction that we are not financial aid, so we cannot look at your student account. But if you have general questions kind of about how loans work, what's happening with your loans right now, should you be paying them off? If so, how? Kind of strategies towards that. We can help you with those. When it comes to student loans, we can't do as much of the specific stuff as financial aid can, but we can do specific stuff with your cash flow sheet, so your income and expenses. We can work with you to figure out.
I will jump on that really quickly from additional information. Every student has been assigned a financial aid counselor that you can definitely reach out to if you do have those questions about your particular bill from VCU. So your loans, your awards, your scholarships, reach out to that person. You can find them through Navigate. They've been assigned to you as a support, and they'll help you through that process.
All right, and we will stick around for any other questions. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming. The Money Spot has another webinar coming up September 14th on recession proofing your finances. So we're going to get a little bit more in depth into cash flow there and how to manage your money during a recession like now. So.
And Carly, how do I sign up for said events? Where do I go?
They'll be on our website, which is
Awesome.
themoneyspot.vcu.edu.
Do not be surprised to see me there.
All right. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.